Okay, cloud gurus, let's take a look at how Kubernetes does networking. And we'll start out with the basics, right? So at top dead center, Kubernetes lays down a few simple but really powerful rules. Number 1, all nodes in the cluster have to be able to talk to each other. Figures, right? I mean, it wouldn't be much of a cluster if the nodes couldn't talk, no? Well, number 2, all pods on the network can communicate with each other without NAT. So think, right? That's a big flat network for all pods. Really simple. Number 3, every pod gets its very own IP address. And that's it. Those are the house rules. So let's get into it, right? First up, we've got two networks, node and pod. Now, Kubernetes itself doesn't implement the node network, but like we said, all nodes need to talk, and it's basically these ports here, though you might need more depending on what solution you choose for the pod network. Speaking of which, Kubernetes does implement the pod network, or it kinda does, right? I mean, it presents a network plugin interface called the CNI, Container Network Interface, and then third parties actually provide the plugins that implement the pod network. Now, generally speaking, right, the pod network is big and flat, normally an overlay of sorts, right? So it's stretched across all nodes and every pod has an IP on it. Now, technically speaking, okay, plugins can do different things, but the general idea is yes, it's big and flat, and each node gets allocated a subset of addresses from it, right? Then, as pods are spun up, they get scheduled to a particular node, and guess what, right? The IP address that they get is one from the range of addresses allocated to that node. Figures, right? But the cool thing, this IP here that the pod gets, yeah? It's not only visible and reachable from all nodes and all pods, it is also the address that the pod sees itself as. So, there is no network voodoo going on here where you've got one address on the inside of the pod, but then another one outside on the network. Nuh-uh. The pod sees itself as this address, and so does everything else on the network. So, think of it like this, right? It's a networking party and every pod is invited. And once you're in, there's no VIP lounge or tiered system or anything where only certain endpoints are reachable, yeah? Well, at least not out of the box there's not. I mean, you might be able to add that later, but out of the box, right, the Kubernetes pod network is an open invite party. And once you're in, you are free to talk with whoever the heck you like. And at the highest level, that is the very basics of Kubernetes networking. But there's loads more, right? So let's start digging.